The question at the tip of everyone's tongue is, how do I change? How do I unlock my mind? How do I transform my life and my mind? Well, the answer may be very surprising to you, but it's locked away in the inside of your own self. Hey everyone, this is Naomi from Spiritual Milk and Honey, and I am here to help you break those chains. That means identifying those limiting beliefs and helping turn those into positive transformation. So let's get into it. In today's video, we're going to talk about shadow work. And before you change this channel, one thing that I want you to understand is what shadow work is not. I repeat, what shadow work is not. It's not black magic or devil worship or any nefarious attitude or school of thought. Okay, so the shadow is an archetype that has been brought to the forefront of psychology by Carl Jung. Carl Jung basically concluded that the shadow was the side of yourself that you pushed down and repressed all of these, ugly or negative traits or perceived negative traits into this bucket or compressed emotion. The way that these might show up could be, if you're not aware of them at all, these could be areas that you normally negative self-talk yourself about, or parts of yourself that you withhold from society for fear that you might not be accepted. Some examples of common shadow behavior. You may not understand that these are shadow behaviors. So there are 7 of these behaviors. The first one is judging others very harshly. Okay. The second one is playing the victim in every situation. Having a messiah complex, or somebody who thinks that they are holier than anybody else because of some form of knowledge or enlightenment that they feel is one up on other people. I believe in the Bible, the way that they said this without saying it is whenever that they were talking about the Pharisees and the Sadducees, who were teachers of the law, but were obviously, according to Jesus' perspective, were not doers of the law. Projecting your own insecurities onto others. So that's like if you're constantly saying, oh, they're so stupid, they're stuck in their ways, I can't believe that they're so lost. And really what you're doing when you say stuff like that is you're actually pulling from within you the feeling that you're lost, and you're saying it as if somebody else is lost. Unacknowledged biases and prejudices, meaning these are things that you don't talk about openly. These are things that, you haven't dealt with before. I understand that in this world that we're currently in, a lot of prejudices are coming to the surface. These could be shadow behaviors from people that have never dealt with them before. And it's just a time in our society where consciousness is coming to the forefront, so all that stuff is kind of bubbling up to the surface. Another shadow behavior would be willingness to sacrifice others in order for you to achieve your own goal. Like when you're willing to step all over somebody in order to get to whatever goal or attribute that you were trying to get to. The last one, number 7, is when you anger easily with people who don't have any power to fight back. So that would be like bullies. That's a shadow behavior. Another one would be people who act as Karens when they come into a store or a restaurant or anything of that nature, and they want to complain to the cashier or to the drive-through worker or something to that nature. They are trying to impose their power onto somebody who doesn't have any power because it makes them feel better, probably about whatever things that they're not happy about in their life. If any of those numbered traits or behaviors hit home for you, you may stand to do some shadow work, okay? But that's not a bad thing. It actually gives you the opportunity to transform yourself. So, they're tiny blessings in disguise, okay? This brings us back to the topic of this video. Shadow work is the most meaningful piece of self-transformation that you can own in your arsenal, okay? What shadow work is it's the self-work for you to become a better version of yourself. In the short term, shadow work is basically journaling, where you're writing things down or typing things up if you're a digital person, about certain concepts, maybe writing prompts if you are having a hard time figuring out what to write about. But in the long term, what shadow work is bringing to the surface these repressed traits that you haven't been dealing with ever, and you're bringing them to the surface and then dealing with them, bringing them up one at a time, okay, and dealing with them. You take the time to sit with them, and really think about some meaningful questions as to what's going on with you. So it could be something like, why do I act this way? When was the first time that you remember feeling this way? Why do you feel that you won't be accepted if you acted on this feeling? Are there any repeat events that have gone on in your life that you think may have been influenced by this trait? I'll share one personally for my own self. So, I have had some repeat issues in relationships, okay? I have had 2 long-term relationships, one of which I was married. Both of these relationships I had children with, and they both ended in domestic abuse, okay? And I'm going to do another video about that in October, but for now, I just want you guys to know that that's part of my story. So this last go-round was actually pretty recent. I split up from my husband in April. I'll probably do a more like detailed video about that incident. But after that happened, I was kind of sort of on a journey to a spiritual awakening, but really got pushed after he left. So, obviously when you're going through something like that, you cry a lot, you blame a lot, and for me, the way that I look at it is kind of sort of like a mathematical equation. I'm the only constant in these relationships that end bad. So what is it about me that I need to look at or fix in order for this not to happen again? That's another form of shadow work. I didn't even know it at that time, okay? Later, after I did discover shadow work, that was the first question that I asked myself. Why do I keep going back to these horrible relationships? And what it uncovered is actually what a lot of people probably go through, which is that they feel like their life doesn't have any value, or that they are not worthy of having a good relationship, okay? And I am not saying that to brush over it or anything like that. That is a big thing that people need to get over. They may not feel it in the form of a relationship, but you may feel it like, I'm unworthy of having a large amount of money, or I'm unworthy in owning a successful business, or I am unworthy of having a house, of that size in that neighborhood, or whatever the case may be. There are lots of things that you can possibly feel unworthy about, where you can relate to this story too, even if you haven't been in an abusive relationship, okay? So when those issues came up, it kind of made me cry. Well, not kind of, it did. It made me cry because, I thought that I had all of this together in my head, and I didn't. So I knew that I was lacking confidence, but I didn't know where it was stemming from. So as you can see, shadow work could possibly lead you to uncovering things about yourself that you already knew was there, but didn't know the reason as to why it was there. And if you're anything like me, sometimes understanding the why is more important than understanding the how. That's just a personal story as to what shadow work can really do for you. I honestly believe that if I hadn't done that shadow work, I wouldn't be here in front of you, in front of this camera. Because I had to deal with the fact that I was even worthy to be seen on camera. I am still dealing with self-worth issues and looking at myself and accepting like what I look like and not like calling myself ugly or anything like that as I look into this camera right now. And so, if I had not done and started that shadow work aspect of myself and uncovering that I didn't feel worthy or of value, then I probably wouldn't be doing this type of work right now. But here we are, okay? And that actually wasn't that long ago. So realistically, I think I started my shadow work journey a couple months ago, 3 at the most. I don't do it every day. Things don't come up for me every day, but I do have some writing prompts that I sometimes go through. You can always go to Google and type in like, what are good questions to do shadow work? And you can print yourself off a list, and I keep it in the back of my shadow work journal. Sometimes I skip days or weeks because the things that I last dealt with in my shadow work were a lot harder hitting than I had anticipated. So I don't do it for a while because I'm sitting with those feelings and really kind of working through them in my mind throughout the week and whatnot to try to negate's not the word. So the whole goal in shadow work is not to get rid of that shadow aspect of yourself, because you can never get rid of 100% that aspect. The idea is to like not regress it, because that is a bad term. The idea is for it to gradually decrease the effect that it has on your life over time. So shadow work is something that you don't do one time and it's done, or that you don't do for a period of time and it's done. It's something that you're going to constantly have to be doing constantly in your walk of transforming yourself, okay? 5 years down the road from now, my intention is actually to re-ask myself the same exact questions that are in my shadow work journal right now, to see how I've grown as a comparison, okay? That's kind of sort of how you can look at it. Okay. For me, I do the shadow work where I physically write it down in a journal. And the reason why I do that is because there's just something about getting all of that energy out from your hand, out from your pen, onto paper, as if it was like releasing energy or something like that. That just does it for me. But my daughter, who is a new practitioner of shadow work, she actually does it digitally on her iPad. So, to each their own, and do whichever one resonates with you, okay? By simply asking yourself these questions, you're allowing the issues to come up and deal with them. You're acknowledging things that have never been acknowledged before. So, you're going to have to be forgiving of yourself when these things come up and certain reactions come out of that. I know that whenever I was dealing with things from my childhood, in retrospect, my childhood wasn't all that bad. There's a lot of people who had very bad childhoods that I personally am very sorry that you have gone through that. I just want that to be known. However, sometimes people don't go through very massive things or massive physical things, but they affect them in their mind and in their behavior for the rest of their life just the same. What may have been a seemingly small thing could have turned into a big thing by the time you're 40 and actually dealing with it. So, you know, when I was dealing with those things, it really made me mad, made me angry at myself because I'm 40 years old and I'm talking about something that happened when I was like 7. And for whatever reason, the emotions that were there were anger. Like, why am I dealing with this now? Like, how dumb do I have to feel or do I have to be in order for this to be affecting me still now, 30 some odd years later? You know what I mean? So the thing also about shadow work is, you know, not only to forgive yourself, but, you know, give yourself compassion, the same type of compassion that you would give to somebody else who you know is going through the types of things that you're writing about. You need to give yourself that same compassion. These are things that you have been pushing down and regressing for years, decades, you know, long periods of time. And when they come to the surface, they are going to be emotional. Give yourself that same compassion, that same empathy that you would give to somebody else that's going through the same thing, okay? The purpose of shadow work is not to completely do away with the shadow. The purpose of shadow work is to decrease the effect of the shadow behavior on your life, okay? It's to acknowledge the fact that there is a shadow and to integrate it into your life. You know, not every aspect of shadow is something that's negative. Like, it's not all sociopathic tendencies or anything like that. Sometimes you are actually too helpful, and that could be a shadow trait as well, or a shadow behavior. Sometimes you all you want to do is help other people, or sometimes all you want to do is, you know, be there for other people. And whenever that you hear that, you're like, why is that bad? Well, it could be bad if you never are there for yourself. And if you are doing that behavior because you're seeking outward validation, that could be a reason as to why it would be a negative thing for you. It's because you're not happy with yourself. So you choose to project that in a positive way on other people's life. But I actually think the core of that would be the Messiah complex or the Savior complex, because you think that you are so good in what you're doing and that you're giving so much love that you're better than other people. So therefore you have to take control of the situation and you have to be the one to do all the things. Be aware that things that are seemingly good and that society looks at as good can also be a shadow behavior, okay? Some of these shadow traits are unconscious because we've repressed them for so long, and they're not very easy to pull up on demand. So one thing that I had to do was be conscious throughout the day of things that came up that I wasn't necessarily proud of, or that things that I reacted poorly to. I took note of them, and then whenever I came to do my shadow work, those were the times that I brought those issues up and started dealing with them, okay? This allows me to not only deal with past issues by doing regular shadow work and looking into like the first time that I had those types of feelings and things of that nature, but it also allowed me to take a look at issues and things that were coming up in present moment. That's all that I have for you today. Again, the shadow is a part of yourself where you have repressed a lot of feelings and behaviors down because either you're not accepting them or you don't think that people around you will accept them. Okay, some of these shadow traits can be a positive thing when you say them, and you won't necessarily feel that they are something that you need to work on, but they can actually be a detriment to your growth. Okay, you know, everything in moderation, and too much of any good thing can be a bad thing. So just keep that in mind. Hey, jumping on this video right quick, just to let you know, thank you so much for joining me along on this journey. There are some big things coming up for this channel here pretty soon. As early as this week, you should start seeing some big changes. Okay, so if you like this content or this video, please like and subscribe down below and start passing this out to other people so that we can start growing this channel, all right? So be on the lookout for some new things that are coming out on this channel through my social media, and I hope that you are part of growing this channel. Thank you so much for all of your love, support, and attention. We will be back with another video on Friday.